Um, we're here today with Zack Hodgson, New York's Emergency Services Director for the Salvation Army, one of America and New York's oldest and most respected charities serving disadvantaged people. Zack is here to tell us about the annual Don't Walk By event, which occurred this past weekend. Good morning, Zack.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome. Can you tell us about yourself, what you do at the Salvation Army, how you came to be involved with them?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm the Emergency Services Director for our Greater New York Division, which covers Long Island, New York City, and 7 New York counties north of New York City. The work of our department really is to coordinate, support the disaster response, recovery, preparedness, and mitigation work that we do. And we do that for crisis and disasters like a hurricane, but also for the crisis of homelessness, which is such a huge crisis in our city right now.
Okay. So how did you get involved with the Salvation Army? How long have you been working with them?
I started with the Salvation Army in 2005, but I often say that the Salvation Army is a family business for me. I'm the 7th generation of my family to be part of the organization. So it was pretty natural for me to join the organization. And as soon as I joined, I realized for myself that it was the kind of thing that has me involved in something bigger than myself. And I've always looked for those opportunities for service. So I've enjoyed the career so far.
Oh, awesome. So as far as the Don't Walk By event, how did that originate?
Don't Walk By is an initiative of a coalition called the Rescue Alliance, which started about 15 years ago. The organizations involved are now are the Salvation Army, the Bowery Mission, City Relief, which is a street outreach organization, and Hope for New York, which is an organization that provides volunteer and financial support to its affiliate organizations, which the 3 others are. And they got together 15 years ago and started this Don't Walk By event as its first initiative. And it is one that is carried through the life of the coalition so far.
Okay, awesome. What is the purpose of the Don't Walk By event?
I would say the ultimate purpose is to create connection with folks living on the street, folks that often don't have that connection, folks that, as the name suggests, are often simply walked by. And we try to connect with them. We try to provide them resources. We try to provide them connection to other services, and particularly to housing, as obviously that's their greatest need.
Okay. So you already mentioned who organizes the event, and it's all the whole coalition kind of organizes it together.
The coalition organizes it, but that's certainly not the end of the list of partner organizations involved. We bring together a number of services from a number of different organizations, groups that can do benefits access work like SNAP and Medicaid, groups that can provide free phones and phone service for folks. We bring together medical services, specifically podiatry, which is huge for folks living on the street. And then we work with a number of donor organizations that help us gather distribution items to provide to the individuals, to the guests that join us. This year we had backpacks designed for people living on the street, provided by a group called City Pack, that we were able to fill with blankets and hygiene items and all sorts of things that are useful for their daily living.
And when you say podiatry, that's regarding the feet, correct? So that they tend to have a lot of problems with their feet.
That's right. So we're able to provide them some real foot care, which again is huge for folks living on the street.
Okay. And how do the people that you serve respond to the event?
Well, one of the key parts of the outreach is that we have hundreds of volunteers that join us, and a portion of those volunteers are put into street teams that canvass the streets and subway platforms around a host site that we choose, usually a church. And they go out with new socks and invitations and engage in conversation with folks that seem to be living on the street and offer them an invitation to really lunch is the initial offering. At the church, we have a sit-down serve meal with tablecloth and centerpiece and vegetarian option, all of that. And if the folks we encounter on the street need a ride to the church, we have a partnership with Uber to provide free rides for our guests to get them to the church. And then for those that go from the church to some kind of overnight housing option, usually that's the Bowery Mission, one of the Rescue Alliance members. We can provide them a ride to those locations as well.
Well, excellent. So you said you have vegetarian options for the, do you find that a lot of the people that you serve are vegetarians who are living on the streets?
I wouldn't say it's a large portion, but we really do focus on the dignity of our guests. And so if our guest is a vegetarian, we want to be prepared for that. But really, we say that the outreach is guest-centric and volunteer-driven. And by guest-centric, we really mean we want to provide the basic assistance required for a life with dignity for these folks. And so every offering we provide, it's a choice for them whether they want to receive that or not. The backpacks that I mentioned, they can take all of the items, or we actually provide them an order form so they can order which items they want. So it's their choice. We don't want to assume what anybody needs or wants within our guests.
Awesome. So did you have more volunteers this year than in previous years?
This year we had around 350 volunteer roles, and all of them were filled. I would say that's probably in line with prior years. It really is an event that the volunteers of the organizations involved look forward to every year. And so we're grateful that we have so many that come out and join us in the work.
Okay. So how many persons would you estimate were served by the event this year?
Sure. So again, the street teams that go out, they engaged nearly 250 folks living on the street. And then we had on site about 100 guests this year.
So when you say on site, that's people who came to you, or is that people who came back for the lunch?
Both of those are right. People who came to us for the lunch and additional services. Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome. So when the people who in the outreach teams they go out and they meet with the people, they're just bringing them like the backpacks and stuff. So they're not bringing them food, but they're inviting them to a place where they can have a hot meal. Is that correct?
That's right. Well, our teams have, again, this year they had new socks, they had invitation flyers to the church, and then they also had resource information. If folks didn't want to come to the church, we didn't want to leave them without resources to connect to. But really, the invitation really is to this lunch, to this community that's formed on that Saturday.
Okay. And as far as the number of people that were served, is that more than were benefited in prior years, or is it about the same as have been benefited before?
I would say the number of people engaged on the street was comparable to prior years. This Saturday, we focused on an area of Manhattan from Battery Park to 46th Street. So 250 people engaged in that geography. Is probably comparable to prior years.
Okay. Were most of the people that you reached aware of the services available to them?
Certainly, it's something that the street teams share with the guests as they engage. We do ask our street teams not to overpromise what's at the site, so that when guests get to site, we can over deliver. Unfortunately, the folks that they're engaging with on the street have been let down too many times, and so we don't want to add to that experience by saying something's going to be at the church and it's not there. But generally, it is. But we just want to be careful about creating expectations that we're able to meet.
Okay. And so I think you had mentioned what the goal, what the purpose of the event is, but what is the actual goal for the event, like the goal of the event?
I think it's connection to simply to people, but also connection to resources. There really is a community that forms, even in a one-day event. There's a community that forms on site, and a community that maybe is absent from the normal day of someone living on the street. But certainly, the connection to resources is key to it. The connection to resources on site, but also connection to resources off site. Every guest that comes on site is offered a night's stay at the Bowery Mission, or referral to other services that might be needed. In prior years, we've provided rides to detox if that's what the guest needed, or if the guest wanted to go to another shelter, we would provide them a ride to whatever the intake process is for that option. But the real goal is connection to a community, connection to resources.
Okay, that's great. So are the resources that you guys are promoting during this event available at all times of the year, or are they particular to the winter months?
The vast majority are available throughout the year. Certainly, I can speak to the work of the Rescue Alliance organizations. The Salvation Army operates year-round. We have 19 community centers in New York City, 2 in Staten Island. City Relief does 6 outreaches a week in Manhattan and the Bronx and in Northern Jersey. The Bowery Mission certainly provides their housing programs throughout the year. And Hope for New York, as I said before, provides volunteers and financial support to its affiliate organizations year-round.
Okay. Can you give us a couple of examples of some resources that maybe people aren't familiar with that are available to people who are, either living on the street or just disadvantaged in general?
Sure. I'll tell you one example from this Saturday's outreach. We had a group with us called Positive Tales, which provides veterinary care for the pets of people living on the street, which is something that maybe isn't always thought of, but certainly folks on the street form a bond with their pets as anyone else does, and so we were glad to be able to provide that service this weekend.
Oh, awesome. Is there anything else you would like to add for our readers that we haven't covered, or something else that you wanted to add?
I would just say, for more information on the work of the organizations within the Rescue Alliance, you can visit the websites of any of them. I'll provide the Salvation Army's, which is salvationarmyny.org, and you can see their information on our programs year-round, and maybe even decide to volunteer with us. You'll find a way to do that there. We certainly depend on the volunteer support of New Yorkers for the work that we do.
Awesome. Well, Zack, it was really great speaking with you, and we really appreciate your taking the time out of your day to share this with us.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Super.